We have a Fox News alert for you. The Russian government now confirming that Moscow's ambassador to the United Nations has died. 64-year-old Vitaly Churkin was rushed to a New York City hospital this morning, where he died just a short time later. A Russian President Vladimir Putin issuing a statement saying that Russia will forever be grateful for Churkin's professionalism and diplomatic talent. For more on this, I'm joined by John Hanna. He's a senior counselor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and a former national security advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts on the death, the unexpected death of this UN ambassador?
Well, it's certainly a shocker, and the fact is it's a huge loss for Russian diplomacy. Churkin was really a superstar, maybe after the foreign minister, the most important ambassador in Russia's diplomatic service. He's been at the UN a long time, and he very, very effectively defended a lot of indefensible policies by President Putin.
I was going to ask you because clearly, immediately, people will start to have conspiracy theories. Is there any reason that he has upset the Kremlin? And what has he had to say, if anything, about all of the Russian leaks and information that's been in our news lately?
I haven't heard much from Putin from Churkin on the specific issue of the leaks. I can't imagine that the Russians would have wanted to set him aside. Particularly on the issue of Syria and the kinds of war crimes the Russian military has been committing there, Churkin was incredibly effective at guarding Russia against any kind of retaliation internationally out of the United Nations. He's been a first-rate servant for them, at the same time keeping up his contacts to Western diplomats.
And in terms of Western diplomats, his relation with the United States?
Oh, I think it had to be extremely tense over issues like Syria and Ukraine, and yet I think you'll see some of his counterparts at the United Nations, whether it's people like former Ambassador Samantha Power or ambassadors in Britain or Europe, saying that Churkin was tough. He defended indefensible policies, but he was a man who we were able to talk to and have open channels with. He was honest but tough.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, Russia has been front and center in the news here. Here's what Reince Priebus had to say just yesterday about the media reports on possible ties between Russia and the Trump campaign.
You say that the intelligence community says that there were no contacts between anyone in the Trump campaign, any associate of Mr. Trump, and anybody involved as a Russian agent as to the campaign and collusion in the campaign with Russia. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they told me, absolutely. They have made it very clear that that story in the New York Times is complete garbage.
But the Senate reportedly pushing forward with investigations, even sending formal requests to the White House to save any documents related to Russia. Now, you've been on the inside. You know how the process works. Who do you think is responsible for these leaks?
Well, it's only a theory. We're all speculating, of course, but I have been absolutely struck by how every major report of the last couple of weeks leaking this highly classified information has been sourced to both current and former U.S. officials. And that former U.S. officials, I think, is the key tell here, because you have Obama administration officials who served at very senior levels of this administration who would have had access to every single piece of information regarding General Flynn's phone calls, as well as the FBI's investigation into Russian interference in our elections. They've only been out of office a month, and I think some of these people have convinced themselves that Donald J. Trump represents a clear and present danger to our constitutional order, and this is their way of fighting back.
But it will also impact our relationship with our allies, maybe perhaps not sharing as much information with us here at home.
Listen, that's always possible, but again, I would say in terms of our intelligence professionals, the tens of thousands of people that go to work on behalf of the duly elected president and to defend our country, those people are real professionals who only want to be able to do our job. So I think it would be wrong for anybody in this country or abroad to believe that this is somehow a rogue operation within American intelligence or law enforcement.
I'm very glad you were able to say that. John Hanna, thank you so much for joining us. A lot of breaking news. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.